بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم.
Riba.
آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون.
Presented by Abu Hasnain Murtaza Khan.
قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين.
Produced and distributed by Knowledge Books and Audio.
If you are pious, وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَى. Give up riba, what remains of the usury transactions. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا. And if you don't, فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. If you do not give up the taking and the dealing of interest, this is the only place in the Quran, as we began with, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared, has announced and know for a fact that Allah and His Messenger have declared war against that individual. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam cursed the one who eats riba, cursed the one who supplies it, cursed the one who writes it, cursed the one or the two witnesses who testify to it. 73 forms of riba. The most easiest form of riba is for a man to fornicate with his own mother. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الحدي حدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we find that so many of the individuals in even the Western environment, that you find that people have begun to realize what is the major sin. What is the greatest sin that the individual can commit whilst residing on this dunya, and if they die upon that sin. Many individuals have begun to understand the da'wah of Tawheed, the call to the return to the oneness in the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though the effort needs to continue, because the challenges are many, and this grave evil sin, the sin of shirk billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah la yaghfiru an yushraka bihi wa yaghfiru ma duna dhalika liman yasha. On two occasions inside the same surah, inside Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive every other type of sin except for the sin an taj'al lillahi nidda, that you make a sharik, a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. you die upon that sin, you will never ever be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. Shirk is the greatest oppression that insan can commit upon himself. The greatest oppression that you can do upon yourself in this dunya, and if you die in that state. But unfortunately we find وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Many people believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. They commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's something to bear in mind, that still shirk is rampant in this ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The greatest oppression upon yourself in this world and inside the hereafter. We are at war with people who commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not referring to the physical warfare that people may think that I'm assuming. The warfare of even words. Because they commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But whilst in this state of warfare, of kalam, of jadal, of debate, of munaqasha with these people, have we ever stopped to think that what is our condition? That if we are upon haqq, then how comes we never become victorious? That if we have become people who are ahlul haqq, then why is it that victory is never shown to us at some stage? Is it possible that in general and in specific, that this ummah is doing a sin which is also a major sin, whereby the opposite happens now, whereby first we are at war with these people, but with this sin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could become at war with us. Is there such a sin that exists, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared war against those people? So this journey of us being at warfare with these people, in our kalam, in our speech, in the addressing of tawheed, towards their belief in shirk, have we ever stopped to think that maybe a reason for the stopping of us becoming victorious is because some of us in general, in this Muslim ummah, and some of us specifically, have entered into a state of warfare with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is that warfare with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? There's only one sin in the Quran whereby warfare has been declared. I'm not talking about zina, or Riba, or shurbul khamar. Even though the ayat which talk about these things, fiha zajar, is a clear warning of abstinence from zina, from adultery, fornication, evil end. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً. Indeed, it's something illicit, immoral for you to do. Likewise, in shurbul khamar, there is animosity and hatred, or in maysir, evil end for such people who follow these evil ways of life. And even the concept of backbiting. No other ayat, as you find, you read through the tafsir of Imam Shawkani fi Fath al-Qadir, about the way he explains these ayat talking about Riba. It's something to reflect upon. But all of these sins, war is not declared against that individual. That we commit these grave mistakes, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not develop war upon us. This is a sin which is destroying us on an individual basis and destroying us as a society. Maqasidu Sharia, the purpose of the sending of the Islamic law and the overriding aims and objectives of the Islamic law is the happiness and well-being of insan. Is for the khair of the human being as an individual and of human society as a whole. That is the maqasid of Sharia. To make insan happy in this world. Don't think Islam comes to make people sad, to make them feel guilty about their life. The Sharia is placed for your own happiness in this dunya, fid darain, in the dunya and in the akhirah as well. That is the purpose of the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is only today that we begin to realize that the Quranic onslaught, the Quranic attack of this sin has become visualized. What is the power of this sin in the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because so many of us have become full of ourselves. We are beginning to think, نحن شعب الله مختار. We are the chosen people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We never ever do anything wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no need to be angry upon us, and we deserve all forms of victories, and blessings should be showered down upon the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Many of us may have forgotten this hadith. Many of us may begin to neglect this hadith or misunderstand this hadith, which is a hadith collected by the Sunan of Abu Dawood and checked by many of the muhaddithin to be authentic. And in this hadith you find, إِذَا تَبَايَعْتُمْ بِالْعِينَةِ. And the hadith continues, وَأَخَذْتُمْ بِأَذْنَابِ الْبَقَرِ. You take the tails of the cows. وَرَضِيتُمْ بِالزَّرْعِ. You come happy with cultivation. سَلَّطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ ذُلًّا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will shower down upon you a disgrace. لَا يَنْزِعُهُ حَتَّى تَرْجِعُوا إِلَى دِينِكُمْ كَمَا قَالَ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. Never ever lift it from you until you return back to your deen. I'm not going to discuss about the love of the dunya, وَتَرَكْتُمُ الْجِهَادَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, or discuss the absence of leaving jihad. But in this hadith you find, إِذَا تَبَايَعْتُمْ بِالْعِينَةِ. You begin to deal with Ina. Ina is a form of riba, of usury, of interest. When this ummah becomes in that state, forget about the rest of the three things, but clearly evident is the dealings of the Muslim ummah in general and in specific. Sallallahu alaykum dhulla. Disgrace will be thrown upon you, never ever be lifted until you return back to your deen, the deen sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِذَا ظَهَرَ الزِّنَا وَالرِّبَا. If zina becomes apparent, if riba becomes apparent, فِي قَرْيَةٍ فَقَدْ أَحَلُّوا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ. They have made it halal for themselves to be exposed to the punishment of Allah, and another narration, إِقَابَ Allah, to the chastisement of Allah. Look at detail about this hadith. If it becomes common in society, the committing of zina and the taking of riba, you have made it halal upon yourself that the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes down upon you. The style of the Quran is unique. And that's why the way of the mu'min is unique as well. Because the mu'min, the believer, the Muslim society drinks from the fountain of the Quran and takes the teachings of the Quran. We are two different value systems of the way that we perceive life and the views of the world. The way these people view the world is totally different from the way that the mu'min perceives the world. These people only perceive that the rich should get richer. They believe in exploitation, the fulfilling of their lusts and desires, to loot and to plunder, and the hoarding of wealth. That is the belief of Western societies. To take the wealth of humanity, to control it by any way that it may mean to take over the rest of this society. As for the Islamic ummah, that is totally the opposite. Islam breeds and teaches the caring of society, the spread of wealth, and giving other people the opportunities. Because one of the meanings of riba is az-ziyada, is to ask for excessive amounts. And Islam is against the hoarding of wealth, of the storage of wealth. هَذَا مَا كَنَزْتُمْ فَذُوقُوا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْنِزُونَ. This is what you used to hoard, what you used to keep, what you used to store for yourselves. فَذُوقُوا. Taste now of what you used to store. Read the tafsir of these ayat inside Surah At-Tawbah. A bald-headed black snake, serpent will come and will wrap themselves around and sting those people, attack those people of those Muslims who stored their wealth. هَذَا مَا كَنَزْتُمْ. This is what you have stored for yourself. Islam is against the storing of excessive amounts of wealth. The rich do not dominate and control the wealth. Once again inside the Quran, كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ. That the wealth does not circulate amongst the rich people amongst you. That's what Islam preaches. Wealth should not remain stagnant in the hands of the rich people. Wealth should be given to the rest of humanity. And the ayat which talk about riba, as we mentioned, the Quran is always in opposites. The many ayat which come before riba are all talking about charity. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ فِي السِّرِّ وَالْعَلَانِيَةِ. Those people who give their wealth in secret and in open. Highlighting this is the way of the believer. And then comes the opposite. About those people indulged in riba. In those people who are controlling the wealth. Sunnatul Quran. That is the sunnah of the Quran. To always mention the two extremes. To mention the shar, the evil. And then to give the solution of the khair, of the goodness. And if you look at these ayat which talk about riba. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu attaqullah. This is a command which is given to whom? Ahlul taqwa. People of iman. People of taqwa. It's not talking Ya ayyuhan nas. O mankind. It is for those people who already believe in the sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People who want to be muttaqeen. People who want to be pious. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَى. Leave everything that has been left from the contract of riba. In kuntum mu'mineen. If you do believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the test of the Quran. Because many people claim to be muttaqeen. To be pious individuals. Then the Quran lays out the lessons. If you are pious, وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَى. Give up riba. What remains of the usury transactions. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا. And if you don't, فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. If you do not give up the taking and the dealing of interest, this is the only place in the Quran, as we began with, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared, has announced and know for a fact that Allah and His Messenger have declared war against that individual. Read the works of Imam Suyuti fi Durr al-Manthur, wa Imam Ibn Kathir fi Tafsirihi, what is a statement of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. What does he say about this verse? فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. خُذْ سَلَاحَكَ لِلْحَرْبِ. On the day of judgment, it will be said to the individual, take your weapons and go into warfare. Warfare with who? Go into warfare with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Cannot ever be imagined. إِلَّا صَاحِبُ الْجُنُونِ. Except a person in a state of madness would think that I can take my weapons and go and fight with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the tafsir of these verses. According to Ibn Abbas, war has been declared against you in this dunya and in the akhirah as well. Riba, damar wa kharab. Interest is only but destruction, both in this world and in the hereafter as well. As for in this world, la'ana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam akilu riba. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam cursed the one who eats riba. Cursed the one who supplies it. Cursed the one who writes it. Cursed the one or the two witnesses who testify to it. وَهُمْ سَوَاءٌ وَهُوَ سَوَاءٌ. All of them are exactly the same. The one who takes the riba, the one who gives it, the one who scribes it, and the one who witnesses it. All of them are saved. All of them are cursed, are the same and cursed by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And from this many the ulama deduce not to work in the documentation of riba, in the holding of money which contains riba, in the transferring of money which contains riba, and any accounts which are referred to the banuk of riba. And Muslims should be far away from such an industry. Riba, 73 baban. Riba is some 73 doors. 73 different types of riba. The most easiest form of riba is for a man to marry his own woman. In other words, another hadith we find out words, and yet rajul ummahu. For a man to enter upon his own woman, to fornicate with his own mother. 73 forms of riba. The most easiest form of riba is for a man to fornicate with his own mother. And the most extreme form of riba is the greatest form of riba, is to honor the Muslim man. To say something about the believer. And this hadith has been checked by the late Sheikh Nasiruddin al-Albani. Dirham riban. A dirham of riba. يَأْكُلُهُ الرَّجُلُ وَهُوَ يَعْلَمُ. One small silver coin of riba that you eat, and you know full well that this is the wealth of riba, أَشَدُّ مِنْ 36 زَنِيَّةً, is worse than for you to fornicate 36 times. One coin of riba that you gain is as if you are fornicated 36 times this evil action. As for the next world, what will happen to that individual? كُلُّ جَسَدْ نَبَتَ مِنْ حَرَامٍ. Every single body which has been nourished with haram, فَالنَّارُ أَوْلَى بِهِ. Then the fire has the right to burn that body. What do we mean by every single body which has been nourished by haram? I'll tell you what this hadith means, because many people feel that the ulama and the imam living in this country, we don't know the games that you play. We don't understand the technicalities of what happens in iqtisad, in economics inside this country. I'm referring to those people who've taken that one single fatwa, that to take a mortgage is halal. And I'll tell you what people have done with that fatwa. With this religious view, they have gone out, remortgaged their homes, purchases homes on the names of their children, when they all reside in that same home, and put those properties on rent, and then they pay back the mortgage, and they keep the rest of the wealth. Kullu jasad nabata min haram. Every single body nourished by haram, فَالنَّارُ أَوْلَى بِهِ. These are the games Muslims are playing with the Sharia. Take the one false fatwa of taking a mortgage. Masses of our communities take out mortgages in the name of their children when they reside in the same home. Pay some of the money back to the banks, and they keep the rest of the money for their own lusts and desires. For the science of ilm al-durura, a necessity. What is a durura? According to the ulama, are your children starving? Are your children homeless? Are you in a state of poverty? But people amongst the Muslims in this community are abusing these views for their own personal interests. And on the day of judgment, these people will be swimming in a river of blood. And every time the individual wants to come out of that river, as visualized by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they want to come out from this river of blood. Every time they come to the end, an individual throws a stone back at them, and it hits them inside their mouth, and then they go back once again. The river turns into blood. What is the parable of this hadith in today's terminology? People who deal in riba are nothing less but bloodsuckers. Sucking the wealth of humanity, sucking the wealth of poor people, of taking away their rights and living inside this world. And what will happen to that individual when they rise up from the grave? الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَا. People who eat riba, لَا يَقُومُونَ إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُومُ الَّذِي يَتَخَبَّدُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ. Will only stand up on the day of judgment like the one who's been touched by shaitan. What is the meaning of the one that has been touched by shaitan? All senses of faculty have been taken away. In a state of madness, in a state of knowing what's going to happen to them. People who take riba in this dunya, many of them fall into a state of madness. And on the day of judgment will be like that. Because these people live like madmen in this dunya, changing the names and terminologies of the names and playing games with the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا الْبَيْءُ مِثْلَ الرِّبَى. That's because these people state that business transactions is just like riba. That's all we're doing business transactions. But the Quran is quite clear. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْءَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. Allah has made trade, transaction halal, and has made usury haram. That is how the Quran describes this misunderstanding. And for those people who think that the akhirah is far away, that's what some people think. Don't worry about the akhirah. When we get there, we'll think about it. The Quran answers those people as well. يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. What does Allah do to riba? Blots it away. Deprives it. Deprives usury. There is no blessing at all in the money taking from riba. وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. And exploits, expands charity in the giving of wealth. A riba, interest, even if it's abundant, it would end up becoming scarce, having no value at all, is the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is a necessity of life. This is what many people state to us. It is a necessity for us to be living in this environment. Once again, this is a brainwashing of the mind, that the intellect of the mu'min has been taken away. I need to take a mortgage. I need to loan wealth to carry on with my business, to live in this country, to keep a shelter for my family. Or what they accuse us of, we are unrealistic dreamers. We are people who dream about the Sharia. And this claim was made in the 1960s about those people who talked about the revival of Islam, and they discussed about the evils of usury in the 50s and 60s. That is what they said to such people. You are just unrealistic dreamers. And even today, that is what they pose to us as well. استطاعوا أن يحفروا في عقول الكثير من المسلمين. They have been able to dig into the mind of many of the believers, in the mind of many of the Muslims, أن هذا النظام الربوي الخبيث, that is evil system of riba, هو النظام الطبيعي. That is the natural state of living in this world. الذي لا يمكن أن تقوم قائمة للاقتصاد العالمي الوطني إلا عليه. There is no way that international relationships and domestic relationships can carry out in this world except for the use of riba. That has been dug into many of the people inside their minds and inside their hearts. There is no way that we can live in this world on an international level or on a domestic level except for the use of riba. وَكَيْفَ يُحَرِّمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا لَا تَقُومُ الْحَيَاةَ الْبَشَرِيَّةَ إِلَّا بِهِ. How can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make something haram and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam endorse it, this is haram, if it's a dire necessity of your life? What did we mention? The maqasid al-sharia is happiness for you in this world, for you and for society. So how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it haram for you? It's a necessity of life according to these people. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it haram then? وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. Your Lord does not oppress humanity, does not oppress His servants. Why did He make it haram then? أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقْ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Does He not know what He created? He is the most subtle and the aware. 1426 years ago, riba was made haram. And even today it's haram. He was a Rabb at that time, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is still the Rabb today. Time has changed, but the Sharia does not change. Was haram then, is haram today as well. And these people who use the intellect over the text, they are the people who fail to understand. المرجع الأول في التشريع هو النقل وليس العقل. The first way that the mu'min returns back to the nusus, back to understanding of this life, is to the text of the Quran and the Sunnah, and not from the intellect. Not from the intellect of what will happen to me. The mu'min returns back to the Quran and the Sunnah, and has a strong iman in every single thing mentioned inside the Quran, and in the Sunnah is a truth. And every single solution has been highlighted inside the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولجميع المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. أما أدلة العقلية, because this is what many of these people want to see, and many of the Muslims want to see, that give me intellectual proof that riba is damar wa kharab, is a state of destruction. أما المؤمنون, as for the believers, they are content with the verses of the Quran and the ahadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But as for these people who are aqliyun, people who want to state and learn from the intellect, then I'll give you from the intellect and from the mind what is the state of riba. The biggest country which is indebted in riba in this entire world is Brazil. Owns the most debt to this in paying back of riba. And the highest country in the world which is destroying the natural creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is none other than Brazil. Destroying the natural forest to do what? To pay back riba to these people. So you complain about them destroying the planet, but you are the same people who have placed them inside that situation. And likewise we find the stress of debt. It is only a fake relief to borrow this money, to take this loan. The people in this country, the banks in this country, earn £500 million a year from your late payments. From the 1 pence that goes beyond your account, you are charged some 25 to 30 pounds. They earn £500 million in a year just through your late payments and being overdrawn. Let's not discuss the money that they earn from riba. So no wonder people are stressed. No wonder people don't know what to do. And living in this shadow, in this cloud of gham, of huzn, of sadness and fear. And as for terrorism, then I'll tell you what terrorism means. This is economic terrorism. They are the real terrorists. Every single day, the poor nations pay these people £1 billion a day. £1 billion a day is paid back to these people. All these people collecting money, all these institutes that collect money, all the billions that was collected by Live Aid, or Live Aid, the 8 countries that these people are talking about, of making poverty history. That money that they collected only paid for a few hours of riba that was due upon those poor African countries. The billions they collected is only valued at a few hours of the clock that is ticking on those poor African nations. Because every day they have to give $1 billion back. Or they pay $1 billion back. That is what you call economic terrorism. To exploit people. Never forgive people. Keep them always governed underneath you. The African nations are the richest countries in this world. But because of being exploited by the Western governments, it's all rhetoric. It's all just speech that we are there to help you. We are there to rebuild your countries. We're there to give you freedom of life. We're there to give you democracy. We're there to give you your civil liberties. We're there to let you govern yourselves. It's all rubbish. We are all there to make you individuals that are bad. Our servants. The new form of slavery. That is what exists at the moment. The economic terrorism. These are the people that are going to forgive all of these people and remove the wealth from these people. And what is the conclusion? وَإِن تُبْتُمْ فَلَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. If you repent back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the main mass of your wealth belongs to you. لَا تَظْلِمُونَ وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ. You will not be oppressed and there will be no oppression upon you. Take back the initial investment of your wealth. It belongs to you. And do not fall prey to the so-called ulama. Individual ulama. They may even be ulama al-ajillah. Muhtarimin indana. Respected ulama in front of us. They are individual ulama. Or an individual alim. Who may have given a fatwa of the taking of riba. But in comparison to the consensus of the ulama, that many people think that they don't know. كفتوى المؤتمر العالم الإسلامي للاقتصاد الإسلامي in 1976 declared that riba is haram in the Muslim Ummah. المجمع الفقهي لرابط العالم الإسلامي in 1986 declared that riba is haram and its forms is haram. مجمع الفقه الإسلامي بجدة declared in 1986 that all forms of riba is haram. ودار الإفتاء المصرية declared in 1980 that all forms of riba, irrespective of the names and the terminologies and the forms, is nothing but haram. ودار الإفتاء والإرشاد بالمملكة العربية السعودية has declared that all these names and these attributes is nothing but haram. That is the consensus of the lajna, of the ulama, that all of these concepts of riba is something that is forbidden. So don't look at qawlu shadh, don't look at the individual alim and take from him. Look at the consensus of the ulama, who time and time again have declared that all these modern forms of riba and these terminologies that these people take are nothing but a new development of the concept of riba. We are not negating the importance of life. We are not negating the importance of transactions. Many of our salaries come through the bank system. But that is all a prophecy. That is a prophecy of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لا يأتين على الناس زمان لا يبقى أحد إلا أكل الربا. There will come a time that the masses of people will eat from riba. فمن لم يأكله, whoever doesn't eat from that riba, أصابه من غباره, will be suffering from the dust of riba. That is a prophecy of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even if you don't take the interest in your account, it is still contaminated through the use of interest. But the Sharia is quite clear. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as you can. فَمَنْ جَاءَهُ مَوْئِذَةٌ مِنْ رَبِّهِ. Whoever reaches the admonition, the reminder comes to the individual, فَانْتَهَى فَلَهُ مَا سَلَفْ, and abstains from riba, will contain whatever they had from before. وَأَمْرُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَمَنْ عَادَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Whoever returns back to riba, returns back to interest after the admonition and the evidence being highlighted to them, they are the companions of the hellfire. So the individual who finds interest inside their account should return that money to the banks, or go into interest-free account, or take that wealth and give it away in sadaqah, expecting no reward from that wealth. Give it if you want to the Muslims, but hope for no reward. Or even give it to the disbelievers and expect no reward, or just leave it inside the bank. Everyone should try to purify themselves and advise other people of the creation of opportunities. That is what Islam does, is encouraging people to develop wealth, to create wealth. not the storage of wealth, to create revenue and to help other people in society. That's why you find Ayyamul Dhahabiyya, the golden days, are none other than the days under the reign of Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. There was no need to give the zakah, because everybody lived in a state of felicity, in a state of richness. Those are the same days, وَأُقْسِمُ بِاللَّيْلِ الْعَظِيمِ, that will return back once again. Days of felicity, days of bliss and happiness, because that is the promise of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we will return back once again, ala minhaj al-nubuwah, upon the methodology of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is a sin that we will clearly speak out against, that the Muslims are suffering in on a general basis and an individual basis. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify all of our lands, purify those people who govern the lands, to take them far away from the concept of riba, to implement the halal wealth and the spreading of the halal wealth and the opportunities of jobs and wealth to be given amongst the poor people. Inna Allah wa malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. قوموا لصلاتكم يرحمكم الله.
And between the two is some doubtful affairs. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن النعمان بن بشير رضي الله عنهما قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن الحلال بين وإن الحرام بين وبينهما أمور مشتبهات لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس فمن اتقى الشبهات استبرأ لدينه وعرضه ومن وقع في الشبهات وقع في الحرام كالراعي يرعى حول الحمى يوشك أن يرتع فيه ألا وإن لكل ملك حمى ألا وإن حمى الله محارمه ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. رواه البخاري ومسلم. A rough rendition of the Arabic that Nu'man ibn Bashir, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with both of them, said that he heard the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam state or make the statement, Innal halala bayin, indeed halal is quite clear and explicit and open, wa innal harama bayin, and haram is quite clear and explicit and open. Wa baynahuma umurun mushtabihat, and between the two is some doubtful affairs. Many people many mankind don't know these affairs. What are the doubtful things? فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبَهَاتِ, whoever stays away from these doubtful affairs has protected their religion and protected their honor. وَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبَهَاتِ, whoever enters into the doubtful affairs has entered into the haram, entered into the sanctuary. In the meaning as the parable is given, like the shepherd, يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى, like the shepherd would place a shield or a fence around his flock. And if the flock goes into the other side, then obviously you know that you are trespassing. أَلَا وَإِنَّ لِكُلِّ مَلِكٍ حِمَى, and know for a fact that every single king has his boundaries, has his limits, has his guard, or has his fence. أَلَا وَإِنَّ حِمَى اللَّهِ مَحَارِمُهُ, the fence or the borderlines are the forbidden things of Allah. And that's the way, as far as you can go is up to there. If you go beyond that limit, then you are entering into the haram, that you should stay away from the haram. And then we find the conclusion of the hadith, أَلَا وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً, indeed inside is a lump of flesh. Either salahat, if this lump of flesh becomes rectified, then the whole of the body will be rectified. وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ, if this piece becomes corrupted, فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّ, then the whole of the body becomes corrupted. أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبِ, and indeed that is the heart. And some narrations find that the Prophet Muhammad pointed towards his blessed chest. So for many people, we find it sometimes unclear. But the Sharia is quite clear that halal is very clear, haram is very clear. For some people there's some doubtful things, for them it's not clear. وَأَمَّا الرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, as for those people who are engrossed inside knowledge, then for them it's quite clear what is halal, what is haram, and what is doubtful. Because the hadith states itself that some of mankind do not know about these affairs. That does not negate that some people don't know about these doubtful things. The examples of clear-cut haram things are طيبات, the good food, the good provision, والثمار, the fruits, the cattle, the beasts, the various beasts that are allowed for us to eat, the various drinks that are allowed, wearing of clothing, of cotton, of wool, whatever it be, the marital relationships, are all things which are allowed according to the Sharia. Clear examples of things which are haram is any akalul mayta, eating any dead animals which haven't been slaughtered accordingly, blood, the flesh of the swine, drinking of alcohol, to marry one's close relatives which you are forbidden to marry, libasul harir for men, wearing of silk for men, etc., the taking of riba, gambling, all these things are clear-cut haram. There is no two difference of opinions amongst the ulama about these things. Some people may try to come along and make some statements, but in general, that is a consensus. These are clear-cut things which are haram. How about those things which there is some doubt about them? Sometimes you find some people say this is halal, some people state that this is haram. And examples have been given about some of the animals like al-khayl, about the horse, wal-baghal, like the donkey, etc., wal-dab, the lizard, and the drinking of certain different substances from certain fruits, the wearing of certain skins. Certain discussions have taken place amongst the ulama, and some doubt is placed about them. What we need to bear in mind that the majority of the things have been explained by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ, or firstly we find in the Quran, وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ. We have sent down the book تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ, as an explanation for everything. Imam Mujahid, the student of Ibn Abbas, he highlights لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ أُمِرُوا بِهِ أَوْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ, or telling you, explain to you everything you have to do and everything you have to abstain from. That is the meaning of this verse, that the Quran has come as an explanation telling you about every single aspect. يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ أَن تَضِلُّوا وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains to you lest that you do not go astray. So things have been told to us that these are the things you need to do and these are the things you need to avoid. Obviously, under some compulsion or necessity, a person may go and do certain things, and a person under compulsion is forgiven. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ. We have sent down to you the dhikr, the Quran, or the reminder, لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ, that you may explain to mankind that which has been sent down to humanity. So the task, amongst the tasks and the roles of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is to explain to humanity. And that's why you find the final verse of the Quran in terms of ahkam and ruling and regulations, and you find in Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 5th chapter, verse number 3, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. This day I have perfected my favors upon you, chosen for you Islam as your deen, and وأتممت عليكم نعمتي, and showered my blessing down upon you. So here you find that deen is complete. Nothing has been left out. So when people begin to insert certain things or take certain things, Imam Malik said that these are people who are accusing the Prophet Muhammad that he did not complete his task. So bear that in mind. So that's why certain ulama will be harsh against people who make innovations, and people may think that why are they so harsh? Because what they are quite simply highlighting is, they are highlighting that the message is not complete. Either you know better than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or you know better than the companions, or you've introduced an action which they did not do. That's why you find taraktukum ala bayda, I have left you upon the plain, clear path. Naqiya, the pure path. Layluha kanahariha, its day is like the night. La yazighu, or the night is like the day. La yazighu anha illa halikun, none goes away from it except for that individual is destroyed. Meaning everything, I've left it clear in front of you, the actions that you need to do. And there's other narrations of such nature that you find. There is not a bird which is flying in the sky, illa waqad dhakara lana minhu ilman, except for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us the knowledge about that bird. Now, what are the reasons people may pose of why do certain individuals make something halal and other individuals make it haram? The reasons behind this are quite simply that on certain occasions there may be a hidden text which didn't come to that scholar. So for example, a scholar could be reading through certain texts and certain evidences, and that second evidence doesn't reach them. So they'll just stop at the first evidence that comes to them, and they'll just give their religious verdict. Remember that more and more Islam now is becoming codified and easy to research. Many centuries ago, that in any book of tafsir, inside a book of tafsir, you'd find rulings to do with recitation, rulings of revelation, rulings of ahadith, standards of ahadith, whether authentic or rejected, principles of Islamic fiqh. Today you find that everything has been compartmentalized, that everything is placed in its subsections. But previously everything was written together. So you can understand that a scholar will be writing something, read through a text and place it inside his writings, and that would become the acceptable application and the understanding of that individual. So the other evidence may not come across that individual is one reason. The second reason that you find is that two narrations are presented now. Now another scholar may have both narrations. Something is highlighting this is halal, and something which is highlighting which is haram. So they only receive two narrations, however does not have the knowledge of the abrogation of one of the narrations. So you know in the science of hadith that something could be made halal, and then later on in another statement it's made haram, or the opposite. So that's a science in itself. You need to know when one narration is narrated, when the other one is narrated, so you can comply the two together and understand them. So this scholar has now received both of the narrations. One states it's halal, one states it's haram. He's not got the ability, or hasn't reached that level at that stage, or doesn't have the knowledge which one abrogates which one, and he takes a preference of making something halal or making it something haram, is the second point of why some ulama have said something's halal and something is haram. The third thing that we find is to the individual, it doesn't seem, there's not a clear text. They're studying something, there's not a clear text there, so they take a general understanding, or what's known as qiyas, analogy. There's no clear text about the affair, what they're writing about, so they just take a general understanding from some previous text. Then you find a fourth reason as well, that in the actual command, if the Prophet Muhammad told you to do something, or told you to abstain from it, some ulama begin to discuss, is this command a command, or is it a recommendation? And some discuss that if it's a prohibition, does it mean that it's haram if we do this action, or is it just highly abstainable that we have to stay away from that? So that's another reason that you find that scholars may begin to discuss about these issues and make something halal or make something haram. That does not mean that there is not a clear-cut view. That's what we need to bear in mind. Because every time you speak to people, people always throw this on you, oh well, there's a difference of opinion. There's a difference of opinion about music, so let's just accept it. There's a difference of opinion about, for example, I mean, don't name me, take it personally, about shaving off the beard. There's a difference of opinion about it. No, there is no difference of opinion, because we find in the hadith, فَإِنَّ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ لَا تَجْمَعَ عَلَى الضَّلَالَةِ. This ummah will never ever gather upon misguidance. We're not questioning those respectable scholars, but one fatwa of an individual is nothing in comparison to the consensus of the ulama who give fatwas. That's what you need to bear in mind. Always stick to the consensus. Never stick to qawlu shadh. Never stick to the individual fatwa given by whoever that scholar may be beloved to all of us. Never stick to the one verdict. Always look at the consensus view of the rest of the ulama. And you'll always find that the truth, or the true statement, will be held with the consensus rather than that individual. So when individuals begin, because all of us have shortcomings, as we mentioned, these could be some of the reasons that respected ulama could have made these verdicts, given these opinions about making something halal, making something haram. We give them the excuse. And then we look at the consensus, and we find that the consensus has united, has presented the evidences that this is something which is forbidden, or something which is allowed. Because the hadith that we mentioned, لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ, that many of mankind will not know it. Many of mankind. That doesn't mean that the scholars won't know it. There'll always be people who will be able to analyze the text and be able to present it to the people. So, further.
So in the case of if, say, a scholar issues a fatwa that, say, interest-bearing loans, as long as they're within a certain variable rate, are acceptable. Yeah. If, say, for example, somebody comes along...
in that what we have to do, I mean, everything that, I mean, we know that purchasing a house, whatever you do, we do great studies done into it, the location, everything. So the same thing should be done in how you're going to ascertain that wealth. Why should we stop there? Now, should we just take it face value? When you're about to move into a house, you may just ask one of the neighbors. You're going to do heavy research of who lives in this community. Is there a masjid? Is there a shopping precinct? Is there a school for my children? So why just, and when it comes to deen, well, he just said it, I'll just accept it. You don't do that for your everyday affairs, and this is to do with your akhirah. That which you're living, you could be living in a state of sin. So we should take a bit more extra interest in these things, and try to make more research and see. And obviously we don't blame the scholars, because sometimes many scholars are unfortunately ill-informed. People will present to them various projects and various plans and deceive them and use their names and say, well, so-and-so has endorsed this action. And I've personally been there. I've asked, they attributed many things to Sheikh Taqiyuddin Uthmani, and we asked some individuals who are with him that he's endorsed this view. And they've responded that the Sheikh endorses many views, but behind his back they go and change it all. Because he's an authority in economics, so now all that he can do now, he needs to stay on top of it, or the clerics are with him, to go and check these banking systems, what they've promised they're going to do, but behind his back, what do they really go and do? So that's what we need to bear in mind. Don't think that every name which is presented on that paperwork, whatever Islamic bank of this country, that country, is totally Islamic, because the Bank of England is currently doing research of something like $400 billion or something needs to be invested in interest-free banking. They've recognized the market, they've seen the niche in the market, and they're going to create it, they're going to develop it. And they will develop it because they know there's money. While Muslims are sleeping and still arguing, thinking about it, they'll develop the system and begin to call it Islamic. Some concepts of it may be totally haram, but at the end of the day, we know what their purpose is, that their agenda is only to plunder people, to exploit people, because the meaning of riba is nothing but extra. Ziyada, that's the meaning of riba. They will never ever do things for the benefit of humanity and people. It's quite visible that the Live 8 countries, the amount of wealth that they gathered is only equivalent to a few hours of billions of pounds, which the African countries just paid back for a few hours. So that billions that was collected is only a few hours of debt. Every day the poor countries pay back $1 billion is owed back to these rich countries. So it's all about exploitation, and we should bear that in mind and do more research about this. Likewise, you find that the doubtful thing, sometimes, for example, you're in your own house, you find something, what should you do then? Obviously, that's something practical. As you find there's something inside your own house, you should just keep it, because it's your own home, it's your own property. Even though sometimes you do find some narrations talking about being excessive in nature, whereby the Prophet Muhammad took caution. He found a date on his bed, he picked it up and he ate it. He's about to eat it, but then he thought that maybe it doesn't belong to him, it could be a form of sadaqah. And then because remember, the Prophet Muhammad is not allowed to take sadaqah, but he's allowed to take gifts. That's one of his signs. He will never take sadaqah, charity, but he'll always take a gift. That's why I think if you recall the story of Salman al-Farisi or Suhaib al-Rumi, that he wanted to see that sign. He said to him, look, this is a sadaqah. The Prophet Muhammad rejected it. The next day he said, this is a gift. The same item or something similar, and he accepted it, so he knew that was one of the signs of prophethood. In other narrations we find that the Prophet Muhammad took something at night, or he began to sweat at night. And then when he woke up in the morning, his wife asked him that, how comes you sweating? And he said that I ate a date, فَخَشِيتُ أَن تَكُونَ مِنْهُ, that I thought it may have been a date from the sadaqah, and I ate it. So he began, just a small date. So imagine how worried the Prophet Muhammad became. Likewise, you find certain things about Abu Bakr as well, that he ate something, then it was told to him that this is taken from an incorrect manner, because the child or the young ghulam, the servant, had done ruqya, incantation, in the days of Jahiliyyah, and he said, I didn't know what I was waffling about, and I just cured the individual, and so I was given this as a gift. So the Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he heard that, he placed his fingers in his mouth and he threw out everything that was inside his stomach. Just one small date he ate. Because this is doubtful of things that, remember that anything, many times we may question that why are supplications not answered, and one of the reasons the ulama have given is that the sustenance is haram, then it prevents your supplication from being answered. So we may get everything else into place, everything that we do may be in place, but then the sustenance, the way that we're earning our wealth, or the things that we're eating could contain something which is presenting a hindrance from our supplication to be accepted. Likewise, you find other things may come into play here. For example, you find about hunting as well, that you find that if you're hunting an animal and the arrow that you throw or the animal that you catch doesn't have your arrow on there, then you should leave that animal alone, because it doesn't contain your arrow, because many people are hunting, it could be somebody else who's hunting that animal. Likewise, the clothing that you're wearing, and in essence, they are pure unless there's something specific to highlight that your clothing has become impure, then you need to remove that clothing. Likewise in salah, doubts come into individual's mind. You find a hadith which is quite clear, أنه شُكِيَ إليه رجل, a man complained to the Prophet Muhammad that I keep on thinking that I've broken, something is coming to my stomach, and my prayer is invalid. So the Prophet Muhammad advised him, لا ينصرف حتى يسمع صوتا, don't leave the prayer until you hear a sound, or يجد ريحا, or you smell something. Until that stage you should not leave the prayer. And other narrations, fil masjid, you should not leave the masjid instead of the prayer. So these are doubts that could come into the individual. Remember, shaitan, especially in prayer, would like to come and make wiswas, because this is the prime opportunity. Now you're offering a prayer. Remember, the attacks of shaitan are very, very clever and conniving in the way he attacks individual. You get ready for the prayer, you make wudu, and he may remind you about something, quickly finish this, quickly do that, print this off, do that, and eventually get you to delay, miss the jama'ah. Then once you get inside there, or you didn't do your wudu properly, go out, rush again, come back again, then you've broken your wudu. So these tricks and works, volumes have been written about shaitan and Qaydu shaitan, about his tricks and his plotting, how he deceives many people. So the people in the street, he may deceive them in a different manner in the haram things, and the people trying to come towards goodness and offering their prayer, he tries to deceive them in another manner. He doesn't employ the same technique, because he knows that he might say that look at this haram thing or do this haram, it's going to be very difficult. But he knows that I can maybe cause some doubt about this, cause some doubt about that, till this would cause. And you find, unfortunately, many Muslims would go into a state of depression about what's happening to them because of these attacks of the accursed shaitan. Likewise, you find that, other discussion here, I'll just mention it off the cuff, about wearing the clothes of disbelievers. Is it allowed? And the ulama here conclude it's allowed, unless those are the clothing which covers their aura. So if it touches the private parts, then you should not share their clothing, because obviously we know that these are people that don't keep themselves clean. Likewise, their pots and their pans, we find that food cooked with their hands and in their utensils, is that allowed? And in general, we find that Prophet Muhammad did eat the food of the Christians, and he accepted the invitation of the Jew. Because many of us, unfortunately, we get so bogged down into this, that these people, they're impure. Their impurities is the impurity of the heart, of the shirk that they commit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of them are very clean individuals, and we can eat and drink, providing their pots and pans have not been used for the use of wine and lahmul khanzir or anything haram. Apart from that, it's something, doesn't mean sit in a pub with them and have a glass of orange juice. You should at no account go inside the pub and on any account, whatever it is, person should not go there. So here you find that ulama allow that. Some of them say it's pure, some of them say it's impure, and you should stay away from their pots and their pans. How about a mixture of halal and haram? Person's wealth, some of it's halal, some of it's haram. What should you do? If the halal is excessive in nature, then it's okay to accept the invitation, because the predominant halal overrides the haram substance. For example, a person who runs maybe a grocery and maybe selling cigarettes or selling any pork or whatever it is. So the majority of the things that they have is halal. Only a few things that have is haram. So a person shouldn't be so harsh about, because some individuals go around saying, I'm not going to go to the shop. So where are you going to shop from? Let's be practical. The Muslims don't control the supermarkets, don't control the industry. Even if you go to a local Muslim shop, he's still going to have products which are bought in from Japan or China or wherever in the world, from America, wherever it is. So we have to be practical, and Islam is not so strict in creating these type of abstinences. Abstinences are to be created whereby it has a great impact, and a great impact on the people in the industry involved inside the production of these items, and the effect and the messages given out to them. So this is something that we need to bear in mind, a mixture of halal and haram wealth. And ulama continuously discuss this about a child who lives in the house. What should that child do? And they've concluded that it's not the child's responsibility of what the father is doing, and he can remain in that house and eat from that food, because the sin does not belong upon that individual. You find two things in general begin to happen. One is the extreme. The child could be inclined towards the haram more than what the parents were involved in. And then the opposite could happen, that the child could develop such a hatred towards this, that they would become quite independent in what they want to do. So there's no hard, fast and rule. The children they're not at the age of takalluf, the age of responsibility. sometimes the signs that if the person begins to develop that in their life, then the signs of that haram could be visualized. That if the child begins to drink alcohol because of the open nature being exposed to that and seeing it as something acceptable, now the sin and the blame would come down to the father quite heavily, because where did the initial sin begin from? Where if the child learned it from the street, it wouldn't be the responsibility of the father. This would fall down the responsibility upon the father. And then, like I said, you could have the opposite. Many children grow up thinking what their parents are doing and become quite staunch and adamant against their parents about, you know, this is haram, why are you doing it? And this could be a wake-up call for the parents to avoid this type of action. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And obviously we pray for all of the children. They're not tested in any manner, because the blame is not upon them, what is being placed inside their home. And obviously the advice should go out heavily to our community. I mean, even myself personally, when I was in Brick Lane some months ago, and I was quite really taken aback, because I do heavily research in what's happening in the environment, what type of things, and I was just counting. I lost count of the amount of fully licensed restaurants with a masjid central in that area. That masjid should be vocal in preaching to those people, you know, because even the Quraysh had understood the concept that rebuild the Kaaba and rebuild it with pure money. That's written in Tariq, in history. They said to one another, don't bring the wealth of interest and build the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these people were mushrikun. Now, why should the Imam turn a blind eye and let these people come into the masjid, donate wealth to the masjid, build the masjid with haram money? And we're all quite intelligent. We all know the amount of restaurants that are serving fully licensed. The Sharia is quite clear. 10 groups of people are cursed. You can't highlight and say that we live in a Western country, I don't drink it, I only serve it. The hadith in Muslim is quite clear. The person who serves it, the person who delivers it, the one who takes the money, the one who crushes the grapes, everything, all those people are cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is something for us to think about. So these people who indulge in this type of transaction, they should be quite clearly advised. You need to retract yourself, that the serving of alcohol, irrespective if you don't drink it, is something haram. Should not be allowed on any account, and they should purify their wealth. I mean, we had many imams that were removed from their positions because they were told to come and make the khatam, make supplication and prayers for their fully licensed restaurants. When certain imams who did not do that, then they were removed from their position, because the people who were running the masjid were the same people who own these fully licensed restaurants. So either you will bend over backwards to our rules, or we will remove you from your position, which is something which is visible in our local community. We don't have to go off to another community that this has happened, that certain good imams, alhamdulillah, and you have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, refused to go there and pray for them. What do you want me to pray for? The welfare of your business, and you're serving haram. And they just removed them from their position. That, you know, if you're not going to do that, then we don't really need you, you don't serve our purpose. So فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبَهَاتِ, whoever stays away from the doubtful affairs will preserve their deen and preserve their honor. Whoever falls into it has indeed entered into the haram. So we find that that sometimes a person needs to stay away from doubtful things to protect themselves. Because people could blame you, or accusation could be given to you, for you could be standing in the wrong place, and somebody could blame you that why was you standing there? You may have a legitimate excuse while you're standing in that location. So you should try to avoid being put in a doubtful scenario. Even the Prophet Muhammad, when he came out, he was in a state of i'tikaf, and he walked with his wife Safiya. With her she combed his hair, etc. And then he walked with her to the door of the masjid. And certain companions walked by, and they quickly rushed by, feeling who is the Prophet Muhammad talking to. And some shadow of doubt came into their mind. And they said, look, we didn't think bad of you, we didn't have that doubt. And the Prophet Muhammad stated to them that indeed shaitan runs through the veins of human beings, just like blood runs through the veins. So to highlight that concept of doubt can come. So imagine this is the Prophet Muhammad standing with his own wife, and some doubt could have appeared on the hearts of these two individuals. So imagine another individual standing. I mean, how many times have doubt led an individual to a debate with their wife at home, that, you know, you looked at an individual this way, you said this, and then think about if you're actually standing in a location where it could be something wrong. Likewise, you find that some of the companions went out for Jum'ah, went down for Salah, went out for Salah, and they missed the congregation. And subhanAllah, look what they did, and he hid behind a wall and let everybody walk past. So nobody could see that I've just missed the congregation. And then he made the statement, "Man la yastahi min an-nas, la yastahi min Allah." Whoever doesn't have some shyness from mankind won't have shyness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, so it's not a major thing. It can happen to anyone. They can miss the congregation, whatever. But he didn't want to be seen, I've missed the congregation. So he just hid in the corner and let everybody walk past, and then went and or went back home, or went into the masjid and offered his prayer. Likewise, we find that many things that unfortunately many of us fall prey to is the minor sins. Yushiku and yukhalitu al-qaba'id, because this could eventually take you into the major sins. As you find a principle which has been discussed is that there is no kabira ma'a tawbah wal istighfar. There is no major sin with repentance and seeking forgiveness, and there is no minor sin with israr, if you continuously do it, meaning that the minor sin becomes a major sin. If you continuously indulge in it, it's classified as a major sin. So here you find that these doubtful things, if eventually you go into them, or some of these minor things that you don't pay no attention to them, it could eventually just become detrimental to your own self. So these are the hudud of Allah. Tilka hududullah fala taqrabuha. These are the boundaries or the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not go close to them. Tilka hududullah fala ta'taduha. These are the rules of Allah, so do not destroy them, do not disobey them. وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ. Whoever transgresses or goes beyond the limits of Allah, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. They are the transgressing people. So we find that this is a concept of taqwa, of consciousness, is to stay away, the servant of every single thing, مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ, even a small grain, is thinking about that. You need to stay away from falling into these doubtful affairs. Imam Hassan stated, مَا زَالَتِ التَّقْوَى بِالْمُتَّقِينَ. Taqwa is continuously with the pious individuals, حَتَّى تَرَكُوا كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْحَلَالِ, that they begin to leave many of the halal things, مُخَافَةَ الْحَرَامِ, lest and lo and behold they fall into the haram things. Imam al-Thawri highlights, إِنَّمَا سُمُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ لِأَنَّهُمْ اتَّقَوْا مَا لَا يُتَّقَى. The people are called muttaqeen, are classified as that because they fear what many of people don't fear. So the masses are not really worried about these things, about what's halal, what's haram, what to do, what not to do, what to abstain from. But the muttaqeen are those individuals who do care about that. And that is the sifat, the characteristics that you find in the beginning of the Quran about the muttaqeen. And also from this hadith we learn some principles of the Sharia, is that it was classified as saddu dhara'i, the closing of the doors to sin, to vice. So Islam doesn't discuss sins when it takes place, it discusses it even before. As you find in the Quran, for example, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا zina, don't go near to zina. The Quran doesn't say وَلَا تَفْعَلُوا zina, don't do zina, it says don't even go close to it. So Islam comes with a great form of prevention. وَتَحْرِيمُ الْخَلْوَةِ الْأَجْنَبِيَّةِ, not to be in seclusion with a unknown woman who's not related to you. So Islam begins there. Islam doesn't say, at a later stage you should abandon any discussion. It states right there, you should not in the beginning be alone with a woman who is not related to you. Likewise, you find Sa'im, the person who is fasting. If they cannot control themselves, then they should not really go and even, for example, show some affection to their wife, because they could lead into something else. Then we come to the final part of the hadith about inside the body is a mudgha, is a lump of flesh. And indeed, if that lump of flesh is rectified, then the whole of the body will be rectified. This is highlighting فَإِنْ كَانَ قَلْبُهُ سَلِيمًا, and if your heart is correct and pure or good, if it contains only the love of Allah, the love of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, the fear of Allah, and fearing that you would fall into that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislikes. Now the heart, many of the ulama talk about tazkiyah, purity of the heart. They highlight that the heart is Malikul A'da, is the king of the organs. Just like a king who is in charge of his soldiers. Soldiers in general are a reflection of the people that govern them. The corruption that you find of the soldiers who are going to war at the moment is a reflection of the corrupt government that controls them. You can't say these are the actions of a certain battalion or a certain regiment who've behaved in an immoral manner. They are a reflection of the complete command, and that complete command is a reflection of the corrupt governments. So just like in the worldly affairs, if the people who govern are sound, then the people who are underneath them will be sound. If the rulers are corrupt, then the people underneath them will be naturally corrupt. And the same parable is given about the heart. That if the heart is corrupt, then all of your limbs, the rest of your body will be corrupt. And if that heart is sound, then everything about your body will try to be sound to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why you find in the Quran, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. On that day when wealth and children will not benefit you, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, except for the one who comes with a pure and sound heart. That's why you find in certain supplications, أَسْأَلُكَ قَلْبًا سَلِيمًا, I ask you for a pure and a sound heart. And the heart will not become sound, or iman لا يستقيم إيمان عبد حتى يستقيم قلبه. Your iman will not become rectified until your heart become rectified. How to purify one's heart? Then quite simply is ma'rifatullah, is to have more and more knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fear of Him, hope of Him, tawakkul, trust in Him, and continuously. In this, in essence, is what basically tawheed, the meaning of la ilaha illallah. Basically, the more that you study that, that will develop more and more inside your heart, purify your heart, that everything that you do has to be dedicated sincerely towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La tushriku bihi shay'a, and you never ever associate any partners with Him. And that's how it was stated by Mujahid, La tuhibbu ghayri, don't love anyone besides me, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the meaning of this, La tushriku bihi shay'a, do not associate any partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, Imam Hassan highlighted, اعلم أنك لن تحب الله حتى تحب طاعته. You will never ever love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until you love that which is obedience to Him. So certain individuals say, I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you don't love the obedience. You don't do the actions which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. So that shows there is some deficiency in your love towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So man a'ta lillah, whoever gives for the sake of Allah, whoever prevents for the sake of Allah, whoever loves for the sake of Allah, whoever hates for the sake of Allah, has completed iman. You should love the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to do, and you should despise those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He despises them or He dislikes them. Once again, Imam al-Hasan al-Basri, he said, I did not look at something, I did not utter something, I did not take anything, I did not take a step or take a step back until I would stop there and think, is this obedience, is it disobedience? If it was obedience, then I would go forward towards it. If it was disobedience or something which is not good, then I would remain away from it. Other such individuals you find to such a degree, 40 years of my life, I would always question myself about what am I doing? Is this action or what I'm doing, is it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is it for another sake or another purpose? So all these traditions and these narrations and these statements are all to encourage the individual to stick to the halal, stay away from the haram. Anything which is doubtful, the best thing to do is to refrain yourself from it. Stay away from it, and then ask the individuals, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, ask the people of knowledge if you don't know, and the answer will be clearly available in front of you with all of the evidences. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq and ability to implement these words to the best of ability, to stick to the halal, stay away from the haram and the hidden affairs, and to become better believers. Wa jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.